Today's dedication is for Terax, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Wildsear versus Mareth, Marquesa and Orvar. Totally forgot to hit the record button, but luckily nothing's happened yet. We've just drawn into a land and Courser of Kruphix. Orvar has just played a Sol Ring on turn 2. And I do want to point out Metal Blade over here, the Mareth player, is a friend of the channel and a patron of the channel, so a big thank you to him for his support. Marquesa gets a Sol Ring into play as well, followed by a Nazgul, so we'll assume that there's 9 Nazgul in the deck. We'll hope that we can dodge a negate here now from the mono blue player. Drew into Omen of the Hunt, so yeah, maybe we're holding off on the wheel. Sometimes I like to get down a wheel as soon as we can so that we might mess up the opening hands, assuming that our opponent's kept good opening hands, which usually a safe assumption. But if we've got actual spells to play and ramp and colours to fix, then not much point in going for the wheel. The first commander, thanks to the fast mana, Orvar the All form. Marquesa had another Nazgul in hand and is mixing up the artwork, so playing the Nazgul correctly as far as I'm concerned. They do trigger each other for some plus counters, and the Ring Bearer now at level 2, so when it attacks, draw and discard. And the attacker swings into the left against Orvar. Loot Sage, Wari, Disruption into the graveyard. And I think that's the first spell from Mareth, the Wirewood Savage. So whenever a beast enters, you draw a card. Maybe they've gone for some casual beast tribal. Elemental Beast, Mareth, so it will at least trigger off that. Alright, get into some more red mana in a Rootbound Crag, so throw that out. We do control a forest. And I'm thinking we should just go for the Wildsear. Doesn't seem as though anyone's really all that eager to wipe the board. Hope that we don't see a wash away from either of the blue players. Don't tend to see that in multiplayer Commander, but Wildsear is allowed down, so we'll attempt to get some Cascades going next turn. Pongify, instead of going on to, should probably go onto the Wildsear, but instead goes onto one of the Nazgul. Did not go on the ring-bearing Nazgul. Sapphire Medallion makes the blue player cast spells for a lot less mana. Hidden Strings is going to target one of their lands, so makes a copy of the land when the Orvar resolves, and then they get to untap as well as Cypher onto the Orvar. Noteworthy they did tap down the Ape token over here as well, so clearing the way in order to get the Cypher going. Like I said, that's underneath the Orvar now, so once it hits they can get a copy of it. So upon hitting they target both their Sapphire Medallion and an island, so getting a copy of the Sapphire Medallion. Have to assume that he's just trying not to make enemies, because he could have tapped down the Wildsear there and tried to encourage our opponents to attack us instead. Marquesa joins in on the fight, and the Nazgul this time going in towards Mareth. And the Ape is swinging in as well, not sure where that's going in, but Dethrone triggers on both creatures. The Ring Bearer loots Kurzul's Fury into the bin, and the Ape is going in at the right as well. So an early 9 damage taken by the Naya player. Mareth continuing to ramp and fix colours with a 3 visits, and then finishing off the turn that is a Garruk's Harbinger, which is a beast, so it triggers the Wirewood Savage for a card draw. So round to our turn now, and alright, drawing to a mountain I don't hate, so throw that out. And I want to try to get Song of the Dryads onto the Orvar really, or I suppose we could go for Lignify instead. Don't suppose it really matters. Song of the Dryads should be fine. Song of the Dryads can go for non-creature permanents, so yeah, we'll go Lignify onto the Orvar, and that is an enchantment that we're casting from our hands, so it will cascade into something smaller. And there we have Arcane Denial. That is at the beginning of the next upkeep, I think we get the card draw. Yes, it is, so see what we cascade into first. We at least get some value after the counter magic. This is what it's like to play with Maelstrom Wanderer as well. Even if your stuff gets countered, you still get something at least. A Miri's Guile for us. So we're going to use Song of the Dryads after all, I think, because the Orvar player is going to get way too far ahead of us if we're not careful. So Cascade again. Okay, so that is cast with buyback already. Yep. So looks as though they're going to get a copy of their Orvar, we assume. Yep, so there it is. They've still got an Orvar and they're actually going to get more mana with Song of the Dryads. So to the legend rule, they sacrifice the original Orvar, which is going to go into the command zone. Song of the Dryads will fizzle, or actually I think it'll still hit play, just not enchanting anything. Oh, and the Wirewood Savage triggers on any beast anywhere in play entering. Is this a beast? No, it's an elemental wolf. This is every creature type, so it does count as a beast. And Clock Spinning did fizzle because it didn't have a legal target anymore for the original commander. So losing out on the buyback with that is excellent. So I think it was still worth doing in hindsight. Sanctum Weaver we cascade into. And Song of the Dryads does not come into play because it doesn't have a legal target, which is relevant with something like the Sanctum Weaver. I think we need to start trying to deal with this Orvar player. It's a 3-3, isn't it? Yeah, so we can take the 6-6 trample to the left. We do need to keep an eye on Marquesa as well, because that can be a really tricky one to deal with. Orvar draws 1, we draw 2 to the Arcane Denial at the beginning of the turn. Drawing 2 Gratuitous Violence, which can draw us into, or cascade us into, something bigger than what we have been receiving thanks to the small enchantments. Wild Growth pretty much pays for itself. So now with 3 cards in hand and a hell of a lot of mana held up, Orvar passes the turn. Obviously still has a commander in play. Another Nazgul, 3 down and 6 to go. So level 3 on the ring. Whenever it becomes blocked by a creature, the creature's controller sacrifices it at the end of combat, and plus counters. So this one, still the ring bearer, a 7-8 Death Toucher. And we get the Nazgul this time, a 7-8 and a 4-4. Dethrone triggers on both because we are at the highest life total. So it will be 5 plus 8 damage. So we'll not block and take a hefty 13. Discarded to the loot, a Lobelia Sackville Baggins, a Megalanoth, one of the cards from Alara. I think that's the conflux symbol. Anyway, Vigilance Trample 6-6. Whenever it blocks a creature, it deals damage to the creature's controller equal to the power. And just holding back blockers at the moment. So Miri's Guile triggering for the first time. We'll get to reorganise the top 3 cards here. Which leaves us with a Magic Sorcerer. How much mana are we going to have this turn? If we tap down the Sanctum Weaver straight away, it's 10. So it could be this, and then a 6 mana spell. So just Gratuitous Violence. Problem is we know that we'll be cascading into Kalni Heart Expedition. Alright, it can just be Kalni, Forest, Sorcerer. Draw into the Sorcerer. And then it's land. Wild Mage Sorcerer, the Orvar holding up priority, so might be able to counter something, but decides not to if he can. So now we do have to go for the Sanctum Weaver here because it's the only means of generating enough mana for the Gratuitous Violence. But we'll get 2 cascades here at least. Not going to be the best cascade off the Kalni Heart Expedition. I could have held off on a land as well actually. Yeah, I did play a land straight away. But we got the Wild Magic Sorcerer into play at least. And now the blue player doing something. A Scry 2 on the Rivendell. Takes us to an Explore. We don't have an additional land to make unfortunately, but might as well play it here. Of course, what we could have done this turn is gone for drawing into the Kalni Heart Expedition and then use the Gratuitous Violence and our commander to cascade into this, but we wouldn't have got the trigger off the Wild Magic Sorcerer. I'm not sure if it really matters or not which way around we do it. Let's go for an attack now, see if the blue player wants to do anything to us. Potentially being too aggressive towards the blue player because it does seem as though Marquesa is trying to trigger Dethrone every time. But we do not have the highest life total at the moment, so hopefully we'll be pretty safe there. Going to take the double damage, going to go up to 18 points of commander if he doesn't do anything during the blocking phase here. And goes down to 18 life and up to 18 points of commander damage from us. Right, so we'll just go Wild Growth onto the mountain and end the turn at that. Do get a cascade on that, but don't think we can cascade into anything off our 1 mana enchantments. Get show our opponents our entire library though. In fact, I don't think the order of these cards changes, does it? So, can we predict which card we're going to draw into if we just revealed the whole deck? Not sure how it works on Magic Online. Ancestral Mask is on the bottom of this pile of cards here. So is that on top of our library, or is it the card at the top of this stack here? In theory, if this is the card that we reveal first, then this would be on top, so might be about to draw into a mountain, but we do have Miri's Guile, so there's Case of the Locked Hothouse and Lelia as well. Laelia could reveal to us a Rogue's Passage, so not the best. Maybe have to rely on a Wheel of Fortune soon, although we've got Courser of Crucifix to play lands off the top. Omen of the Hunt can shuffle as well. The blue player throws out a Wandering Archaic to get multiple copies of instants and sorceries. Dark Ritual for the only black player at the table, 3 cards in Orvar's hand, and is about to get a copy of the Dark Ritual. So that does put him on Cyclonic Rift mana, always something that you have to watch out for against blue players, of course. And a Cavern Horde Dragon. That cares about the number of artifacts someone has, so might want to swing in at the blue player with that. And then only 1 card left in hand, must be willing to discard it. A Chasm Skulker will get a bunch of squid into play eventually. So if we're going to go for the wheel, we need to watch out for this thing. He does swing the dragon into the left. The 3/4 Nazgul comes at us, as does the 8/9 Nazgul. We might have to block with the Wild Magic Sorcerer, unfortunately. Never really get to do much with this thing. Not really sure I want to go down to 16 by turn 6. So I think we do have to give up on our Orc Shaman. Discarded Consuming Tide, okay. And that did put the first plus counter on the Chasm Skulker because it counts as a card draw when you loot. So I'll just take the 3 damage and give up on our Magic Sorcerer. The Nazgul has Death Touch anyway, so the sacrifice trigger doesn't really matter. The Megalanoth Vigilance Trample 6/6 swings in towards the Grixis player, who seems to be getting away with quite a lot here. Certainly the 2 blue players that are giving us a hard time. Damage is allowed through, takes him down to 31. And there is a Farewell, going to exile everything, we have to assume. And even if Farewell hasn't chosen everything, the Wandering Archaic will get a copy of it as well. Blue player could always counter it though. I think I might have waited a turn. Obviously I don't know what's in my opponent's hands, but while they're... well, there we go. Managed to loot himself into a counterspell in just the nick of time. Again, the Wandering Archaic could get a copy of the counterspell to counter the counterspell. All depends on what he wants to occur here. But like I said, I think I might have waited a turn on that Farewell anyway. A little bit risky with the big creatures in play, but it does encourage your opponents to play the answers themselves. So it's 2 counterspells, each going at the Farewell by the looks of it. So Farewell does get countered. And maybe, can you choose new modes for a modal spell with Wandering Archaic? Because he could just go for enchantments here. Or do you have to copy the spell as it was placed on the stack? Well, he's decided to put it on the stack again, so I think we'll find out, because I'm sure he wouldn't have gone for artifacts and creatures. I'm pretty sure you have to copy it as it's on the stack. You can choose new targets, but not new modes. Yep, so just ends up exiling everything. I imagine he thought he could change the modes there. So I think we need to hold off on the wheel effect here then. We can't afford our commander, I don't think. Helm of the Gods, where was that in all this? Yeah, that was like right in the middle here, so I don't think Magic Online keeps track of the reveals properly. I think it should be in the order of your deck if you didn't cascade into anything. So we'll disregard this entirely. Could have done with the land that we thought was on top in order to get our commander down again. Try the Courser of Crucifix. Might be able to get down a land with that. Yep, there we go, a tiger. Gains us a little bit of life. Seal of Primordium on top as well. I think I'm fine shuffling away Seal of Primordium, so we'll aim for Omen of the Hunt. And we can get down Helm of the Gods here, even though I'm not going to equip it. High Tide with 3 islands in play. Allows Orvar the All-Form into play again. And it's noteworthy that Orvar does tap down his mana, so doesn't have an instant speed card that will protect his Orvar and get a copy of it again. Marquesa in top deck mode and doesn't bluff, just throws out a Tyrite Sanctum immediately. Does allow him to afford his commander again though, so we have to assume that that's what he's going for. Rampaging Baloths is another beast for the beast player, and can obviously generate those off landfall. We'll just go for Omen of the Hunt in response, and has a fetch of all things to play into the Rampaging Baloths. So let's see, pretty much in top deck mode as well. So we put a Kenrith's Transformation on top, there is a Clothis as well. So let's see, what can we do this turn? Yeah, we could reveal a land. I'm not going to cascade, of course. It's 7 mana to get down our commander again. Then we would need a land to go for Kenrith's Transformation. We could clear this off the top with the card draw from the transformation and reveal a land and then still go for our commander. I think we want to deal with Orvar regardless. So let's just do that here. It does land. making Orvar a 3/3 with no other abilities. And we do get to reveal an untapped land off the top, that's great, so play that. Gained a nice little sum of life from the Crucifix so far. And that allows us into our commander again. There's a Windfall. Well, we'll get to draw some additional cards at least. It's a shame that we didn't go for our Wheel of Fortune, but better that someone else pays the mana. And yeah, we're not refilling our opponent's hands entirely at least, so this kind of works out alright. Especially if we can get extra value from Cascade effects. A Boros Charm is 4 damage to a target player, so going after Marquesa with that, you might as well if he's not going to do anything else here. I don't think he needs the Indestructible against a blue player. So we only draw 3 cards because he decided to use that Boros Charm. There is a Delayed Blast Fireball, not as good when we're not cascading into it. There is an Enchantress's Presence that we're drawing into next turn though, so that's good. Another Nazgul, what is that, the 4th one? I think we've seen this art before though, so our opponent has failed the assignment in swapping out all the art for individual 9 pieces. They have managed to fully level up the ring though, so now whenever the ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, each opponent loses 3 life. And they did make the Nazgul the ring bearer. Tyrite Sanctum is triggered to put a counter on the Marquesa, and the Naya player is at the highest life total, so we'll still be able to swing in with this thanks to the clause that will have it survive, but does he want to do that here? Yeah, decides against it. Mirari's Wake for the Naya player, gonna have 6 mana held up after this. And then a return of the Wild Speaker, drawing cards equal to the greatest power, so 7, takes him up to 9 in hand, only 1 mana floating though. Played a tap land there I think, so gets another 5/5 beast token for that. Yeah, had a feeling he'd do that. 7/7 trampling towards us. We're leaving Orvar sticking around for too long. I'll just take that damage. The problem is, if people keep swinging in at us, then we can't take out players with Wildsear, and it leaves other players in play for too long. Alright, let's see what's on top of our library before we make any decisions, because it might be that it's just a Boseiju. Although we can play that, can't we? So let's play Boseiju off the top as a land. And that reveals Nylea. Not particularly interested in drawing into, although it would be an indestructible blocker, which isn't the worst. Although that being said, we're going to cascade past it, aren't we, when we cast this, so yeah. So Delayed Blast Fireball is going to be 6, 7 and 8 damage. So this is going to be 8 mana to go for with Foretell. 2, 4, 6 and 8. Again, we're a mana shy. If we wanted to go for the Enchantress's Presence. So I suppose we need to see what we can cascade into, if anything, with the Fertile Ground. Just throw it on a forest. Well, the only thing we've got access to is a Utopia Sprawl, which is more mana at least. We'll put it on a different basic forest. Not sure if that changes anything. Arid Mesa is on top, so we've got a couple of shuffle effects at least, and we can shuffle with the Omen as well. But I'm thinking we're going to have to rely on Delayed Blast Fireball, unfortunately. So we'll foretell that, and we can cast it at a later turn for 6 mana at instant speed, 5 damage to everything. Which means Helm of the Host can go onto the Wildsear, and yeah, our friend the Naya player over here has bought the Orvar another turn, because we can't tap the Wildsear down if this stuff is going to swing in at us. Can't trust Marquesa to not swing in towards us either. Although, can we take another hit for 7 if we take Orvar out here? Because we're going to wipe a lot of the board anyway. No, it's probably an intelligent thing to try and do, isn't it? And we'll take the risk of tapping down our big creature in hindsight. Might be that he drew into some bounce or something. Appreciate Orvar playing it out if he is going down here though, because it does change the plays that we have to make, which could change the outcome of the game for all we know. Yeah, so we do manage to take him down. The Khemri's transformation goes into the bin. Now that means that during the upkeep it might be an idea. How does this work? An indestructible counter goes on a target god. I think we need to try and make them tap out so that they can't activate this. Maybe they'll try to cast something else. And we'll just have to risk that they don't get into counter magic for the Delayed Blast Fireball. So we allow them through the draw step. Might be that they go straight through to combat here. Yeah, so it looks as though he is going straight through to combat. And likely attacks us, I think. No, the Nazgul swings into the right. that gets a plus counter. It will still go down to the Delayed Blast Fireball, so we'll allow this. We'll have to allow a loot on the ring as well. Could be that we hold this over our opponent's heads. They do know that we have it because we're playing with the top cards of our library revealed. So maybe the beasts can be encouraged to the left, or at the very least not to swing in at all. And it dealt damage, so each of us loses 3 life. So we go down to 18. Don't think a beast blocked there, so still took the damage and is still at the highest life total. 7 cards in hand over here as well from that Return of the Wild Speaker. And now is tapping into a backup creature, Valdaran Thrillseeker. And the Tyrite Sanctum is not held up anymore. So with backup it's putting plus counters on itself. I don't really... Yeah, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. I don't really want to deal with that with multiple plus counters, so we'll have to go for the Fireball now, I think. So that's 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control, assuming that we get through counter magic. They did discard a Midnight Clock previously, by the way, to the loot, and only 1 card in hand. They'll keep a couple of their creatures, thanks to the Queen Marquesa though. So the beasts get taken out, still have a Rampaging Balos to deal with, but 7 damage is better than the extra 15 damage that could have come swinging in towards us. So Marquesa brings the 2 creatures back. Tyrite Sanctum being activated again once Marquesa comes into play for a plus counter. And once again the Nazgul is made the ring bearer. A Gruul Rage Beast. Whenever this or another creature you control enters, it fights. So that enters as a 7/7 and fights the Marquesa. So again that will come back into play, but won't have a plus counter on it. So like we said before, this Marquesa can be really tricky to deal with. Decides to leave it in the graveyard, curiously, so might have a Reanimate in hand or something, unless that was a misclick. Plays a land into the Rampaging Baaloths, which means it can fight the Courser of Krufix, which debuffs our Wildsear down to a 9/9, now that we've lost an enchantment creature. We know that the Arid Mesa's on top of our library. And then he Rishkar's Expertise as well to draw even more cards. And they'll get a free spell for whatever reason. Allows him into Elder Gargaroth, which is a 7/7 that can fight, so if they're able to make another creature they could get rid of our Wildsear again. Instead fighting the Death Touch Nazgul, so the Elder Gargaroth does go down straight away. Alright, has a Questing Beast as well, drawing into some really good cards as you would expect when you draw half of your deck. So this one does have haste, and it has Death Touch as well, so manages to one-shot our commander. Yeah, the Gruul Rage Beast doing some work here. Kahira after that gives beasts +1/+1 and vigilance, making it really easy to swing in. So we get the 8/8 going down to 10, and Marquesa comes back into play at the end of the turn thanks to that plus counter it had on it previously. We know what we're drawing into here. I'm not sure we can really do anything now. Oh, I suppose I could have gone for the Scry on this before we drew. Whatever, just go for the commander again. And we don't know what's on top. I don't suppose it matters unless I have a Surveil land. Yeah, we'll play it risky and just play the Enchantress's Presence now. Might be worth playing an untapped land in order to put Helm of the Gods onto the Wildsear again. So Cascade with the Presence allows us into Wolf Willow Haven. Not going to be too much use to us, unfortunately. Need another turn and a lot of luck really, but something tells me that we're not going to get another turn unless Queen Marquesa manages to wipe the board. So playing Crack the Verdant Catacombs just so that we can equip the Helm, and that leaves our Wildsear at an 11/11. The Tyrite Sanctum, getting a lot of use out of that, putting the plus counter back on the Marquesa to try and keep it in play. Might be that we see a board wipe here. Nope, Swiftfoot Boots. So it seems as though the beasts are just going to go wide on us next turn if he's willing to sacrifice any of them, because we will block. Another land being played into the Rampaging Baaloths. I don't know if it was Kessig Wolfrun. Don't remember seeing that before now. Makes a beast and triggers the Gruul Rage Beast, so a 6/6. Attacking our 11/11 goes down immediately, but still with 7 cards in hand and double mana, is likely able to get rid of our commander. And there's a Thragtusk. So the 7 damage will likely go on to, yes, our commander again, gains 5 life when it enters and will make a beast when it leaves here as well, but doesn't have a legal target to fight anymore thanks to the hexproof. And there we see Crater Hoof after that, which is a beast, so is very much thematic. So really cool to see a tribal deck go off here. I'm not sure, I think I have done Beast Tribal before. I have absolutely no idea how I built it or what colours I used though. You have to imagine it's Naya or Gruul. Anyway, this buffed up to a 14-14. Yeah, 2 14-14 to 12-12. 10-9. The Kraytooth has haste, so that's a 13-13. I imagine we both go down here. Alright, awesome. Yeah, fun game that one, going down to Beast Tribal. I had plenty left in the tank. A Spearbreaker Behemoth to protect his board. Ravenous Baloth to gain a bunch of life. Rakeclaw Gargantuan as well is just going to give things first strike to make it more easy to keep things in play. Right, yeah, if we could have kept our commander in play for any length of time, then that Rogue's Passage might have come in handy. But I'm not sure we were really getting into anything too incredible. Didn't have the best of luck in drawing into our really expensive enchantments. Our bombs, really. But that's just the way it goes sometimes, unfortunately. Big thank you to Metal for bringing an interesting deck and supporting the channel monetarily on Patreon as well. You can do so yourself via the link in the description below if you would like. And a big thank you to those of you who do that already. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.